Hello, good day to each and every one of you. I hope you're all doing well in these gloomy days. Welcome to the 51st edition of the Midi de l'IRIB in a somewhat unusual form, of course, for at least three reasons. One is, of course, that we're doing this Midi online because of the COVID crisis, as you all know. The second is in English, as you will have noticed as well. And the third reason is that this Midi is not so much about Brussels, but rather about the topic about Antwerp. We'll be discussing the closure and covering of the Antwerp ringway and a very important, prominent citizen movement, Ringland. We nevertheless believe that this topic has lessons to be learned for Brussels as well, and maybe we can draw inspiration from this for Brussels as well, both from the viewpoint of urban spatial planning and mobility policy, as well as in terms of collective action, citizen participation, direct democracy, and so on. So we are very happy to introduce today's speaker, who is Peter Vermeulen. So Peter is an engineer, architect, and spatial planner. He is a co-founder of Stramien, a fairly large office in architecture, design, and spatial urban planning. And of course, he's also the co-founder, source of inspiration, and coordinator of Ringland. After Peter's presentation, we'll have a short discussion. So Rien Van de Wall will be introducing the discussion. So Rien is a historian and an urban planner. He is the author of Petite Ceinture and the initiator of the Bye Bye Petite Ceinture collective, thinking about rearranging the small ringway Petite Ceinture in Brussels. And Rien is currently working at Vereniging Delta Metropole in Rotterdam. But so first we will be listening to Peter Vermeulen about a very fascinating topic, Ringland in Antwerp. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks that I can speak in English, but if there are questions in Dutch or French, no problem after that. So I introduce you a little bit about an interesting story we are working on for several years now, and if I can start my presentation. Everybody sees it? It's okay? Is this okay for everybody? Can someone react on this?
So Peter, you cannot hear me, I think. It's perfect.
Everybody can hear me? Okay, fine. Then I continue. Okay, so we are talking about the covering of the ring road in Antwerp, and it's a long history for more than 20, 30 years. And the question is about an infrastructure project or a city project. Some brief history of Antwerp. This is an old map of the 19th century time, a period that the city of Antwerp changed totally. If you can see the mouse, and you'll see this was the land today. This was the former Spanish fortification built in the medieval time. So in the second half of the 19th century, the city became much bigger by making this new ramparts on the Briamont side we were talking about. So very strange is that this huge investment on military capacity of our military fortifications was never used. It was demilitarized before World War I, And all the military buildings that you see above on the right side are demolished and are away. But for more than 50, 60 years, all this environment was a very interesting green space around the city. And when I was a young boy with the Boy Scouts, we went over there to play in the water, on the ramparts, in the green that was just there around the inner city of Antwerp. But all this landscape changed totally, and you don't recognize me, but I'm somewhere there as a schoolboy. We had half a day free to be there when the Ring of Antwerp and the Kennedy Tunnel, that you see here, was opened in 1968. So this new ring was built on the spot of this Vermeulen ramparts, and as you see here, part of the ring of these ramparts were changed 100 years ago for the Olympic Games, the Olympic swimming pool, where we went as a young boy, as I said. But this environment changed, and you see the BP building on the left side, and on the same spot is now the Ring of Antwerp. What's important is that everybody was, in that time thinking about modernism and the cars as solution for all problems. On the other hand, a lot of people were thinking, this is too big, much too big. This is not a capacity too high for city of Antwerp. But as you see on the photograph on the left side above, congestion started very, very soon. And with that congestion, not only congestion, but also a lot of problems on safety and later on the smog that came up. So 1995, 1997, the so-called Staten-Generaal, les États Généraux de la Mobilité, the governor of the province of Antwerp, with a lot of engineers and others, were discussing about how to solve this huge mobility problem for the region of Antwerp. And the only solution, they said, is, okay, it's very clear. We have to make the Ring of Antwerp complete, because at that time it was three-quarter of a circle. And so the image on the left side was what they were thinking about. We must say that a lot of people were dreaming of a bridge over the River Schelde, but it was never the idea. It was a tunnel, the so-called Oosterweel connection, a tunnel underneath the Schelde, but a big viaduct over the islet, the southern part of the harbor of Antwerp. And so the red line connects two parts of the ring. And so the idea was, if there is congestion, if there is a problem, if there is an accident, okay, everybody takes the other way around, and the ring can be used for more than fun. The problem of congestion should be solved this way. But let's say this Staten-Generaal was followed up by the Straten-Generaal, as you see on the right side underneath. And it was the first movement of citizens of Antwerp. They started up the discussion. I was not a member of them. I know them. It was Many Gleis, for example. And what they were discussing about was, we shouldn't close the ring so short to the city. If we have a problem of mobility, what we have to do is to make a bigger ring, and the northern part, as is shown there, with the A102, and they discussed and studied very hard from how can we introduce a new highway on this through the harbor of Antwerp, so to make all those connections a little bit further from the city of Antwerp. Same people of Borgerhout, part of the inner city of Antwerp, and let's say the most densified part of the city, the part with the biggest lack of greenery in the neighborhood, they also introduced a new idea. And they said, is it not possible to cover a small part of the Ring of Antwerp so that we can make a better connection from our inner city neighborhood of Borgerhout to the other side of the ring, where the Rivierenhof is a big park, a very interesting park, but very difficult to reach. It's a big passage over the ring, which children and on bikes and things like that, not so easy. So that was their idea. I must say, if they told me, I said, okay, very nice idea, but I didn't believe in it anyway. But on the other hand, they started to show the the project of Madrid Rio, what you see on the right side, and we're a very similar situation with highways on two sides. The river, what's there, changed in less than 10 years to a fantastic covered space, parks, sports facilities, and all things around. I've been there 2 times, and when I saw that, I said, okay, maybe they have a reason to at least cover a part of the ring, just to give some interesting new space to people living nearby. But at the same time, a few years later, 2008, the so-called ademloos, Abu Souffle, in Dutch it's ademloos, without suffering, they started a new discussion. What you see is the map of Europe, where the spots of air quality and bad air quality are indicated in red and dark. And as you see that the Po Valley in Italy, but also Flanders, part of the Netherlands, and the Ruhrgebiet in Germany are the hotspots of bad air quality. And so Ademloos started a discussion about sanity, about healthy, and that the importance of in the first the air quality at first, later on also the noise problem of noise around the Ring of Antwerp was so important for health of people that they said that's the reason to do something on the Ring of Antwerp. And at that time I was convinced. It was not only a nice idea for urbanists, but let's say a very important need. I always said nowhere in Europe so many people are living so nearby, such a concentration of traffic, with the noise, with the bad air quality as the Ring of Antwerp. So if there's one place we have to do that kind of huge intervention, the covering of this whole ring is necessary in Antwerp. So more than 10 years ago, the referendum was started up by Staten-Generaal, Manu and his friends, and by Wim van Hees and Ademloos and their friends. And you see that the conclusion was very clear. 60% of the people of Antwerp said, no, we don't want this huge bridge, the so-called Lange Wapper. Lange Wapper is a mythical figure of the medieval time in Antwerp, a kind of ghost, was going by night through Antwerp. And so the bridge was called Lange Wapper. It was long, really, but so nobody would liked it and said, okay, we don't want this bridge, but we also don't want the tracé. You see on the right side, BAM tracé, vote no. BAM was the organization that had the task to build those infrastructure. And so the people were very clear and said, we don't want this tracé and we don't want this bridge. But the Flemish government, okay, they had to deal with the result of this referendum. And so they were looking for a kind of compromising. And what I said on the right side above, okay, we still have to close the Ring of Antwerp, but no problem to do it on the same spot. But okay, it will be no bridge, but it will be a tunnel. And then they added the A102 and the R11 bis on the right side to make a bigger ring around Antwerp, so to make even more infrastructure to deal with the traffic and congestion for the whole region, for the harbor, and for the region of Flanders and Antwerp. But Staten-Generaal, Manu and his friends, they said, okay, no, we have a better idea, the so-called Meccano scenario, where they said, we still tell you that a new connection through the harbor, so-called Haventracé, is a better solution than the small inner ring that you're making here. And if we have more traffic further from the city of Antwerp, further from the inner city, then we can have a totally other ring around. It can be much more green and much more safe. Okay, a few years later, 2012, the city of Antwerp made a study, presented the study to say, is it a good idea to cap the whole ring? And I said, conclusion number one, yes, it's a good idea. Because if we do that, you see it on the right, the air quality will be better for a lot of people living nearby. Even we can gain some money from the environment because the what you pay for a house will be much more than before when there is green instead of a ring. But third conclusion, it's okay, but we have to reorganize the whole ring of Antwerp. And why do we have to reorganize it? Very simple, because there are so many ins and outs at the moment that's the reason that it's so dangerous. And if you have to cover this in a tunnel, it's even more dangerous. So, but they said, okay, that's necessary. And what I missed was, okay, how could we do that? And therefore, that was the initiative. You know, all the Tolkien in the Lord of the Rings, in the ban van de ring. What we said is, let's go out of the ban of the ring. And we proposed an idea to have a separation of traffic in 2 tunnels for each direction, so that we have the going through traffic in one tunnel and the more local traffic with the in and outs for the city in the other tunnel. And then we said, okay, we can put it underneath. We can put the signal on the roof of, so that it's further from the buildings of the inner city of Antwerp. And we can make a lot of green on the roof of this new ring. And that's what that was the idea we started with. We presented it several times, 2012, 2013, but then a lot of people asked me and said, okay, but we have to do more. And it's a very good idea, but what can we do with it? It's very important to push it. And then we decided in 2014 to have a big campaign. Why? Because on the 25th of May of that year, the elections were coming up. So it was the moment to make clear to the new Flemish government that things should change and that we wanted really this kind of new intervention, not only on a better mobility, but also on a healthy environment. And third point, to give more space for city development. Some friends, some families, some colleagues of Stramien and others got together and said, okay, we have to do it on a very ambitious way. They found out the new name, Ringland. They started up the website. We organized the festival, and it went very, very hard. We had more than 20,000 believers, followers on our site in those first days. So we launched on the 14th of February of 2014, and we called it the 10th district. Antwerp is divided in 9 districts. And we said, okay, here we have the surface as big as one of the other districts. So the 10 districts will become a green district, and everybody of Antwerp and the whole region will profit on this. Our idea from the startup was the main reason to do it is to make more green. And you see that this park on the ring side could make a connection between the park of the Oude Landen up to the north, the Rivierenhof and Ruggeveld on the east, and on the south side, Nachtigale Park, Hoboken Polder, and others. So that was the first idea. And the images there was okay. Around the stations, for example, on the left side, project that was already started on the Berchem station to develop more concentrated around public transport. And the same idea could be developed on the south station, picture on the right, whereas nothing at this moment. So with this, we started, and then we said, okay, if we want to have success, we have to do 3 things. First thing is make some studies to be sure that all we propose is realistic. And therefore, we organized a colloquium in the Singel, and Professor Van den Broek made compared the intervention on the left side. It was made in 1910 or 7, I don't know, by the head of administration of the city of Paris. And so at that time, because the ramparts were already demilitarized, there was an international competition to think about what could we do with this huge space around the city. And here you see that what they tried, or what they started up, is to make parts of the city. And that's a total other approach than the one on the right side, made by the Dutch people in the 30s and 40s, where they said what's important is infrastructure, to make good connections to Amsterdam, the Ruhrgebiet, Brussels, Ghent, Paris. And you see that they proposed 3 rings around Antwerp. And what Professor Van den Broek said is the approach we need is, it's a city project, it's not only an infrastructural project. And okay, mobility is a problem, but Professor De Borge said what we have to do, of course, is not to make much more capacity and always more and more for cars. We have to invest in the same time on public transport, on bikes, on transport by cargo and boats for goods and things like that. So reducing the capacity was one of the main starting points at that time, 2014. The third one who spoke was Hans Bruinings, and he's head of the ecological department of the European Council. And he said, all our recommendations on cities to work on sustainability are integrated in a kind of project like this. So it's not enough to have more safe energy or green energy. No, we have to do this kind of structural infrastructural projects for a city like this covering of the ring. And the fourth one was Professor André Lux from the University of Louvain. And he was member of the jury of a lot of city projects in Flanders. For example, all the projects you see on the left side. The New South, the New Zurenborg, different projects, all nearby the ring. And his conclusion was very clear. He said, okay, these are interesting projects, but as long as the ring is there in the existing situation with all the noise and all the air problems and things like that, it's not worth to do it. But if we can integrate all those projects in a new city development around this green covered ring, then these are all top locations, and then we should do those projects as soon as possible. And the second point he mentioned is that if there is one part where we need to start, it's the northern part. Why? Because in the inner city, Borgerhout and Stuivenberg, outside Merksem, Deurne Noord, Luchtbal, are the communities of Antwerp, the poorest parts of the city, so with the biggest lack of green and that kind of surface. So public space, that's where we should start. Second point, okay, good support from the from the professional way. On the other hand, we have to deal with the bigger public. And so we started a lot of campaigns, and it went very hard. I can say that the affiche we made, we want Ringland, was, you could see it in every state of Antwerp. It was a huge success at the time. Up till now, today, a lot of bikers have the idea of, I want to bike on Ringland, as you see. But what we did too was 6 weeks before the elections, we started to plant the flag of Ringland beside the Ring of Antwerp. Every day, 6 weeks long. And sometimes there were 10 people, sometimes there were 100. So what we tried to do is to inform people who said, this is our idea, we need your support. And our friends of Ademlozenstraat-Generaal organized that time a meeting on the 4th of May on a Sunday afternoon, and I said, okay, wij stappen en trappen, we are walking and biking to cap the Ring of Antwerp. And it was a huge success. And due to that success, the day after, we planned a meeting in the Roma in Borgerhout. And that was a huge success too. We gave a lot of information. We said we have to inform people. And we hoped to have 400 or 500 people. It were more than 1,500. I guess it was completely full. The effect was that all the newspapers were writing about Ringland. And I said, okay, on the left side, we should doubt about what's more important, infrastructure or safety or healthy for the people. The other said, no doubt, let's cap. And of course, those elements were important to have our third point of view. How can we have impact on the political side? And we made a memorandum and asked all the parties before the elections, what do you think about it? And of course, rather easily for the opposition to say, okay, of course, we agree. People of the majority, of the former majority, said, yeah, maybe, yes, it's interesting. Yes, we should maybe start a study. And the Liberals, for example, on the right side, the VLD, Open VLD, had the campaign really axed on our ideas. They copied our designs in their folders So it went very hard. But then the new government started, 2014, and they said, okay, let's do two things. Let's continue. The problem of mobility is so big that we have to continue. The Bamtrace will be built, no discussion. This is decided. But okay, maybe we should start a study about the covering of the ring. We can see if it could be interesting. Okay. What we didn't wait for that new study. We said, let's study ourselves. But to do more studies, we needed money. And then we started the ring of the districts. So we went 9 Saturdays, the one after the other. Here is in Borgerhout, and then next week in Merksem, in Deurne, in Zandvliet, and all over the city. We went over there to discuss to the people and said, this is Ringland, but we need your support, we need your money. And we started campaigning for 100,000 euros. And within 3 months, we gained it so that we could start 4 new studies just to prove more and more that our idea of capping was not an idealistic idea, but it was really a useful idea. So we asked professionals to study on this. We studied on the configuration of the tunnels for the European rules to say, can we organize it? You see their design, but they may also made some designs of what could it be after the covering, what kind of landscape we could make, and it made a lot of people in Antwerp dream about that kind of future. The second study was made by Victoris from Louvain, and what I said is they studied on mobility, and they said, okay, the division of the red going through traffic, the green more local traffic, and the orange one that goes from outside to the city of Antwerp, or vice versa from the city of Antwerp outside, that gives a good equilibrity between those two tunnels. So they convinced us that the idea, the concept could work on point of view of mobility. Then the VITO, the Flemish Institute of Technical Studies, studied on the air quality, and it was clear that by covering the whole ring, the problem should be solved for most of the people. Only point of interest that still left was, okay, you see the black dots on the endpoint of different tunnels. How to deal with that was one of the important elements to discuss further on. And this were 3 studies, but the 4th one we get for free. Some medicines studied on what's the impact on healthy for a lot of people. And so they said for more than 300,000 persons, the quality will rise up. So we save 21 lives every year only on this better air quality and less noise problems. And then big question, what does it cost? We asked Idea Consult to study for that. And apart from the positive effect on and the saved costs on healthy, for example, they also said there's a system of road tarifying that you could, the congestion charge in London, for example, and they made a study to say, okay, we can gain a lot of, and it's very actual because you are in Brussels starting with the Stadstol, a lot of discussion in Flanders, but we are very happy that our Minister Peters said this week, maybe in 25, we will be ready to do it also for the rest of Flanders, for the whole Flanders. And okay, those 4 studies, we presented them again in the Roma. We even, after a lot of doubts, we organized 2 evenings, and it was 2 evenings of full house. So what they said in the news on TV, they said, we are incontournable, very clear, as pressure on the politics. We had the second festival, and you see, maybe you recognize Stijn Meuris from North Cape. We also had Gorky, we had Raymond van het Groenewoud, you name it. Everybody was there, and yeah, huge success. So it was really a livable action all those years ago. The result was that we could present our studies in the Flemish Parliament, as you see here. And the result of that was that we said to the Flemish government, don't start a new study, start a new project, a process. And therefore they asked Alexander Doge, the one close to me, on the second one on the right side, professor in MIT Boston at that time, and he got the task from the Flemish government and the Antwerp government. You see the Bart de Wever and Con Kennis from the city of Antwerp on the left side. So as intendant, he got the task to bring all people together, to discuss with everybody, and to see how could we introduce this kind of project in our community. And a few months later, he presented Over the Ring as a very ambitious idea that said, okay, the idea of capping is very, very important. We have to work on livability, and okay, mobility is part of the problem, but not the most important one. What did we do that time? We continued to study. With some engineers, we made a study of phasing the covering of the whole ring of Antwerp, because a lot of people also, of course, asked us, how are you going to organize this without stopping the traffic for a few years? And so therefore we had a phasing with the first tunnel outside the existing ring, then phase 2, phase 3, and we found the solution to pass it in the existing situation of the ring, so that it could be done, realized on a realistic way. Our friends of Straat-Generaal and Ademloos at the same time moved up the pressure on the politics, because they said there was the BAM, the Organization for the Oosterwilverbinding, was working on a new permit to build their tunnels, and they said no, we go to the Conseil d'État. There was some news that they were going to win this procedure. So politicians became a little bit afraid of what was coming up. And at the same time, we said that we did it, our 3, Straat-Generaal, Ademloos, and Ringland. We started up a new referendum. So we start to gain 70,000 signatures from people of Antwerp to say, okay, we want a new referendum. In fact, for the same point of 10 years before. Or do we find that the city of Antwerp has to agree this kind of project on the BAM tracé as they are working on that time? So both elements, the initiatives of the intendant, and on the other hand, the political pressure and the juridical pressure from this referendum and from the Conseil d'État was very important to work on a kind of compromising. You see here the 5 members of the Flemish government, 3 of the Antwerp government, and then Manu Wim and I from the city movements. Alexander is in the back after Ben Wijts, the Minister of Mobility. And so 15th of March 2017, we made a compromising on the so-called Toekomstverbond, a pact for the future. And the Flemish government decided also to say, okay, and we add 125 million just to start on project for livability. So it was a very big change, okay? It was a kind of compromise made by the intendant, but important. Why? What was decided? Where did we agree with? We left our struggle for the Haventracé and said, okay, let's build the Oosterweelverbinding, but on a reduced capacity, on a level that it's a connection for the city itself. On the other hand, the idea of instead of building the harbor tracé, the Internet said, let's ameliorate what's existing through the harbor at the moment, the so-called Haventracé, passing by the Liefkenshoek tunnel up to the north, and then continuing that on the right side with the A102, so that there can be a connection coming from Germany over the E313, over the A102, and so direction of the harbor, or even further to Ghent, Zeebrugge, and France. So those two rings, a ring for the city, and another ring around the city, was basic compromising. But two other more important elements, of course, was that this could be made possible to cover the whole ring of Antwerp, the green part, and on the same time we decided, we agreed with the politicians that the transfer model, the modal shift, is important. Where today 70% of people are going to Antwerp and from Antwerp outside, 70% by car, we have to reduce this to 50-50, and that's what we are working on, what we decided. And the next, even more important point was that the whole discussion for all those elements, the capping, the Haventracé, the Routeplan, the Oosterweelverbinding, from that point on, we started what we used to do with the Intendant. We continued after that, and we had some werkbanken, some meetings for each project, and you see the different colors. It's a symbol for, it's a meeting for members of all governments, from the different levels, Flemish government and the city of Antwerp. Also, people from the neighborhoods, participation on a high scale, experts from inside and outside. So it's really an open space where you can have open discussions of all those elements, with the idea that it's not only going on traffic, but on the integrality of the whole project. And okay, we started also at the Vervoerregio, the region for mobility around Antwerp, 32 communities working together on a mobility plan based on the modal shift we want to realize. That's we are working on at this moment. So it was rather ambitious to invest also in public transport, in bike transport, to reduce this 70% of car use to 50% in the next 10 years. Alexander, the Intendant, continued his work, and he selected 5 international teams of urbanists and planners, and they made proposals for the different segments. The sixth one was the office of Alexander himself. They were working on those segments on the Ring of Antwerp to look for the future, how to deal with it. And it was very interesting, also with a lot of questions. For example, this one, the southern part, you see here the kind of reference to some elements of the former ramparts as a new part of the new parks that could be done around the ring. On the other hand, the red spot in the middle of the plan is the station of Berchem, where the idea was, how can we develop much more this very important train station for the whole region? But on the other hand, there were also questions, why not covering more? It's a partial covering proposed in this. But okay, what they had to do, this is another one more to the south, to the River Schelde, where the big spaghetti node on the south at the Kennedy Tunnel is reduced rather, with 50%, let's say. But also very important, more to the south, that part of the A102 going to the south of Brussels should be covered in the same movement. Very important for the neighborhoods around at Kiel and the Expo neighborhood beside. So a lot of very interesting suggestions, but the question was, we have 125 million, what can we do with that? And the Intendant proposed a kind of selection. There were 35 projects, partially projects from the different teams. So he made a selection up to 18, and then they said, okay, this one 25 milliards, we can start with those 18 projects to realize and to step by step work on the covering of the ring of Antwerp. Beside that, there were 4 studies to make, but okay. Here is an overall view. The projects were clustered again in 4 parks up to the north. Ringpark Noordkasteel, Ringpark Groenendaal, Merksem-Lugbal, then the Loobrugdok and het Schijn. Those 4 are part of the Oosterweel project. Then we have 2 parks on the south side, the big one, the Groene Vista, from Borgerhout to Berchem, and then the Ringpark Zuid, the spaghetti node at the Kennedy Tunnel. 7th one was the bridge over the Schelde, the biking bridge they proposed, and then Ringpark West, a little bit separate. Why? Because a few years later, before, the change of infrastructure on the left side was already started up, and the question was, how can we introduce elements on livability in this going on project? On the right side, there was 4 studies to be made, one around water and energy as important technical topics in the whole ring zone. Another one around about the multimodal hubs on the Lugbal, on Schijnpoort, Berchem Station and South Station. And then the 4th one was the southern part of the ring where the separation of traffic should be studied further on. Actual situation on the left bank, works are going on. What's very important, there was a discussion with the community of Zwijndrecht nearby, and they said, okay, we don't cap this part of the infrastructure on one, on one point. This had to be clear. The sound reduction for 10 decibel should be done on the right side, on the both sides of the ring. And what they proposed, what I'm giving as office proposed as team, was to make a landscape with berms on the southern side and on the northern side of the A19, where there was no place to make it on a landscape way. They said, okay, let's make sound protection, and at the same time, let's integrate solar panels in this wall protection for, and they're working on this right now. What the fietsbrug, the bicycle bridge over the River Schelde, there was a decision this week that after a lot of discussions, is it better than a tunnel or not, and what does it cost, and what is technical possible or not, the decision is made. So the bridge for bicycles on the side of the Kennedy Tunnel is coming up in the next years. But that is a part of a whole system of bike paths, which gives a perfect connection with the ring bicycle path around Antwerp, but also up to the harbor on the left side of the River Schelde, up to the north. Then there was a permit for the building of Oosterweel. After a lot of work, they asked their permission in March of this year, and a few weeks ago they got the permit to build this Oosterweel connection from the left bank over the River Schelde to the north up to Merksem and Lugbal, and joining the ring of Antwerp at the Schijnpoort at the Hollandse Knoop with 4 nodes, one on the left bank, point A, one Oosterweel Knoop near the Noordkasteel, then C, the Groenendaalaan, Merksem, Lugbal, and number D, Schijnpoort, Borgerhout, Deurne, Noord. With the tunnels, one underneath the River Schelde, one to the north, one to the south along the canals, and then a small one underneath the Albert Canal, the point is. The last 2 years, we had a lot of discussions with the engineers of BAM, at the moment called Lantis. And here you see, for example, the change that we made in the node on the Noordkasteel. the plan above is the first proposition, and then we discussed a lot and say, isn't it possible to make it more compact, to cover more? And so you see the basic solution below, where a bigger part of the Noordkasteel is solved, and where a bigger part will be covered, where the water system can be held, where part of the military ramparts can be solved. So it's a huge step forwards for this project. The same for the complex on the Groenendaallaan, Merksem, where before it was an in and out for the highway on a huge connection on the ground level. What we proposed was to make it deeper and to have the park over this infrastructure. And so that's a very huge amelioration of this environment. And the third one is even more the so-called verbindingsweg from the environment of the Sportpaleis on the left side to on the south side of Deurne-Noord, ten Eco-Vallei. Now we discussed a lot and we found another solution to make the verbindingsweg on the other side near the Aquafin plant, so that the greenery near the ten Eco-Vallei in Deurne-Noord can be much bigger. The River Schijn can pass there. But of course, we continue to discuss not only to change this verbindingsweg, but also to cover this part of the ring. So, what's going on now? The 4 ring parks. This morning I had a discussion. Every 2-3 weeks we have a discussion about the different ring parks and the continuity of the design they're making now. For example, this morning on Noordkasteel, yesterday on the Groenendaallaan. A lot of work, but just to participate, possibility of participation with all people of the neighborhood, experts, people of Ringland, Ademlo, Straat-Generaal, to follow this project. On the same time, we are discussing about how to separate how to organize the separated system on the Ring South. It's still a discussion going on, but okay. Important there is that they already started the Ringpark Groene Viste. Same ideas. You see elements of the former ramparts into the new proposition. And another very important element are the connections they are proposing. The designers are proposing to make green connections from the ring parks into the neighborhoods inside the city and outside the city. And those green nerves, the Ven, Virte, are very important, and the city of Antwerp is picking it up, starting new projects, so that also on that level, on that scale, on that local point of view, they can be worked on an amelioration. And it will be clear that the actual corona problem makes clear that those kind of green nerves and green environment also in the neighborhoods is very, very important. Okay, changing of the infrastructure, how can we make it more compact and more integrated, some space for greenery, for water, for ecology. And here, for example, the project of the spaghetti is reduced more and more. And what's, for example, very important, that is on the right side to see the image, the bridge that's going now, passing the South Station, going into the city, will be reserved in the future only for public transport and bikes. Why? Because the car traffic can continue on the new node that's made in between. And okay, we're still discussing the covering of also of this part of the ring. I'm almost finishing. This is one of the images we made 5 years ago, the dream we were working on. I can say that this dream is, it goes better and better, but okay, it has to be actualized. And so we are discussing with the Flemish government on 4 points. The second one is, okay, you start now with Oosterweel, and in this project are 4 small parts of covering integrated. Why? Because at this moment there's decided 125 million, and it's not enough for the whole covering. So let's integrate, and let's start a study to integrate the full capping of the whole Oosterweel up to the north from Deurne on in the same period, between now and 2030, when the Oosterweel connection will be finished. Let's work, number 3, on the Haven Tracé in the same time. And let's hope that the covering of the whole southern part of the ring can be continued when the Oosterweel is, the end of the Oosterweel works are coming on. And of course, the first point, investments in public transport are very important to gain the goal of the model shift. So this was our first point. What you see on the left side is what's covered in the project now, and on the right side, what we are proposing to integrate in the same time, so that we don't have to wait too long for this kind of final situation. And that's another point. We agreed with the government that we will start beginning of next year with a new work bank only on financing, because everybody knows it's a huge amount of money. So we have to study, and the University of Antwerp is helping us to discuss how can we organize this huge investment for the next 10, 15 years, the next decades. What are the possibilities to make it realistic? And we hope in February we have a kind of actualization of our Toekomstverbond, just to redefine the timing, the phasing, the money, and all what's necessary to give solutions on our dreams, started by the planting of the flag of Ringland several years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Peter, for the very interesting, fascinating presentation, very rich presentation as well. Before passing on the floor, is it me sounding? Okay. Before passing on the floor to Rien, I would also like to inform people following this webcast that they can put questions, comments in the chat, and that after Rien's discussion, we can come back to those with Rien, with Peter, and we can discuss these. So feel free to post any questions and comments. And then right now, I will pass on the floor to Rien for a short discussion.
Thank you very much, Tom. And thanks, Peter, for your interesting presentation. I find it always fascinating to see how Ringland has managed in those past years to cover more or less all the subjects playing on the interface between mobility and the quality of city life. And for this webinar, I have been asked to reflect upon the relevance of the Ringland initiative from a Brussels point of view. So let me just introduce myself. 2016, I launched with a friend architect the website petiteceinture.be. And a year later, we set up together the collective Bye Bye Petite Ceinture with civil society organizations like BRAL, ARO, and Architecture Workroom Brussels, as well as with research institutes, Brussels Studies Institute, and also IRIB. And during that time, some people started to call us the Brussels version of Ringland. We didn't completely agree on that. It's true that both initiatives are launched by urban planners to rethink the design and the integration of main road infrastructure in the city. And we both push for more integration of urban development and urban renewal on the one hand, and mobility on the other hand. But the territories we are working with, they are so different that the similarities, in my opinion, don't go much further. I'd like to address two aspects. First, the content of the projects and its potential to gather support. And secondly, the consequences of the multi-scalar character of the Ringland project. So first, the Antwerp Ring is an infrastructure which, in our opinion, doesn't really have an equivalent on the Brussels regional territory anymore. Because apart from being a ring road in and for the city, it is also a highway of national, international importance that carries a lot of traffic, which doesn't have its origin or its destination in the city. While in Brussels, since the construction of the Brussels ring, the grote ring van Brussel, the main arteries within the region, they have another role. The traffic on these roads, on the Brussels roads, has its origin and / or destination within the city. And so if you want there to reconcile accessibility and livability, exactly the same objective as Ringland has, in Brussels you need to apply other recipes. I'm saying this because we often hear, and you see it still emerging, appearing in the public debate, let's build tunnels to solve the problem. For example, also in the recent discussions on the Bois de la Combe. Our stance is that for the Brussels roads, tunnels and the urban highways they create, they are rather part of the problem instead of the solution, because they make it easier to drive into the city, but sooner or later cars end up in the small city streets at the surface, so they reinforce the bottlenecks in that way. So instead, in our opinion, it should become less easy to enter the city by car, and for that we should rather develop a perspective on closing and repurposing tunnels, integrating the tunnels themselves in the city life. It's something that the regional mobility plan Good Move doesn't really develop. They don't really develop a perspective on redistributing the public space. They do that only very partially. So that we still have a long way to go for that to be realized. But going back to Antwerp, the message Ringland can communicate to the population is very simple and very positive as well. And they stir the imagination with those in-your-face images of appealing large swaths of new green land, and the 10th district of Antwerp. And the project adds 50% extra capacity on the busiest parts of the highway. And so actually it's a project nobody can be against. We heard it also in the presentation of Peter. But in Brussels, we don't have such context. Design proposals to reconcile accessibility and livability, they need to be more subtle, more nuanced, and the feasibility requires a change in the behavior of people. To be very concrete, a modal shift, and also a change in policy towards more steering or directive measures, like the road tax, which has been announced last week by the Brussels government. And this difference, this immediately makes these proposals, these Brussels proposals on reimagining the main arteries in Brussels more divisive and ideological, both within the population and among politicians, than something like Ringland. So my first question to Peter is, to which degree can we explain the large support for Ringland among the population by the fact that it is a rather non-disruptive and non-ideological proposal? That's my first question. Second, I would like to address the scale of the Ringland project. In a project like Ringland, it is necessary to constantly switch scales from the neighborhood level to the metropolitan area and back. I imagine it's a very difficult exercise. We also were confronted with that while reflecting upon the future of the Petite Ceinture. And I'm curious to know how you manage that within Ringland, playing with these different scales. And when we look to Brussels, we see a large number of locally active groups that interact or try to interact with their municipalities. So we see different dynamics here in Brussels. We get a very diffuse overall image, so not a very straightforward perspective like Ringland offers. Luckily, in recent years in Brussels, we see coalitions appearing between organizations, coalitions that act on a regional level. I think also that with Petite Ceinture.be, we contributed to that coalition forming, just like Ringland allied with Straten Generaal and Ademloos from the beginning. I also read on the Ringland website that you are even upscaling now to the metropolitan level with the Zorro project, so to include the suburban municipalities around Antwerp. At the same time, you also set up these side initiatives like Straatvinken and Curieuze Neuzen, each of them in new ad hoc coalitions addressing very similar problems as in Brussels, like air pollution and traffic sneaking through neighborhood streets. And this allows to continue involving citizens in this Antwerp mobility debate that still is very complex on the political, on the design, and on the engineering level. So it's really wonderful that you find ways to include the inhabitant of Antwerp in this debate. I believe that this constant search for alliances is also a takeaway for Brussels citizen groups that battle for these issues, because as long as problems and challenges are taken up only on a local scale, things remain too little integrated and too fragmented to really reach a critical mass. And we saw in Ringland that this critical mass allowed you to start actions like crowdfunding for additional research. And this additional research made the proposals again more credible towards politicians and towards and also you gain more support among the population. So it's this kind of upward spiral that I think you need to put to put challenges of this metropolitan scale on the agenda, and then talking about this metropolitan level, and that's of course a particularly difficult one in Brussels, since we have the regional and the language border problems you don't have in Antwerp, but probably it's necessary to take it to the metropolitan level if we want to take the discussions on the role and redesign specifically of these main arteries a step further. Also, in order to soften the conflict between city versus hinterland and the diverging interests between those inhabitants. So my second question to Peter, can you tell a bit more about how you play with the different scales and how you manage to get the inhabitants of the suburban territory behind the Ringland project? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, few answers, starting the answer. On one hand, I must say we are also discussing on difficult problems around mobility. For example, we discussed first that the Oosterweel should be designed starting point, the ambitious modal shift, 50% realized. Why? We say we are going to make this ambitious modal shift up till 2030. In the beginning, they said the Oosterweel will be finished in 2025. So we said, okay, the government said it has to be worked from the first day on. So we calculated on half of the ambition of the modal shift should be realized. Now they are telling us that the works are going to be continued up till 2030. So we say, okay, maybe we should review the design to see if it's possible to design it with the ambitious modal shift 100% realized. Maybe we can reduce even part of this tunnel system. So the discussion on capacity on the tunnels of the Oosterweel verbinding, but also on the new highways to be built on the Ring South, for example, are part of this discussion. But I agree that this and the political discussion on traffic and parking lots and things like that are very hard sometimes. But for the people of Antwerp, it's going on. It's about something else. It's in fact the dream we could create. The dream with the images of could it be possible to realize this fantastic urban natural landscape just nearby. And that dream is still going on. So that's and although it's fun, then the problem still is the complexity and the amount of money we need. So okay, but what we are very, very lucky that we found a lot of people engaged very hard for Ringland, so that we started once with the crowdfunding for those 4 studies in 2014. But when that was finished, we started a crowdfunding campaign, and we asked people just to continue paying 5, 10, 20 euros every month so that we can work. We have 2 people half-time working for Ringland, and we can pay them with the money we gain from our supporters. And on the other hand, they organize very well these different levels of scale. So we have the ring parks, and for every ring park, we have some experts, some people of the neighborhood, and we bring them together, or we discuss together. And once a year, 2 times a year, we bring all the antennas, as we call them, the Ringland Academy, the experts, but also the antennas, people from the neighborhood working on that. We bring them together to tell about our experience, to tell what's going on the south, on the north, on this side, what's going well, what's going maybe not very good, so that we can learn from each other and getting more enthusiastic for the totality of the project. And that's important. For example, in 2018, when the Flemish government decided about the 18 projects for the 125 million, we said to the people of Berchem, do you agree that we don't gain this money for Berchem, but for the northern part of the city, as I said, where it's more important? And the people of Berchem said, okay, on one proposition that our part of the deal will follow. And so we have to be sure that it's not one project and then finish all the thing. No. So that's okay. That's a lot of work, but it's very enthusiastic to have so many people discussing on. And as you said, we're trying to organize it on different scales as we did for Zorro and the southeastern part of the region. 8 communities where we bring people together to discuss about their public transport, their bicycle projects, and that as a part of the route plan as a totality. So yeah, it's a rather big organization, but it's working rather well. And yeah, okay, we continue.
So thank you very much, Rien and Peter. For the audience, so if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to post them, and then we will discuss them. In absence for now of these questions, I have a small question myself. So as an inhabitant of Antwerp, I must say that I am in awe of the omnipresence of Ringland as a citizen movement. I think it's almost unprecedented to have this amplitude of a citizen movement in a community as large as Antwerp. And so I'm wondering how you do reach such a diverse audience, because I think in Brussels, so if I can make the bridge to Rien, in Brussels, one of the challenges, no doubt, is the fragmentation linguistically, culturally of Brussels. So question to Peter is, so how diverse, so how do you reach all these different communities, and is this a challenge, and how do you live this in Brussels, Rien, the challenge of organizing in such a fragmented society?
One element, we always say Antwerp is a small city, and everybody knows everybody. And that makes it rather easy to find people, to make new connections, to find new people. And okay, there's a kind of evolution in all our volunteers. Some might be working very hard for 5 years and then say, okay, now it's enough. But okay, there are new ones coming up. I totally agree that it's not so easy to reach all different parts of the population. For example, for the migrant part of the population, we try to find contacts. It's not so easy. I think it's the same problem everywhere. But for example, as we are working now in the Zoro project for Mortsel and Borsbeek and Edegem and Contig, there we know people from the Fietsersbond who are working for years on their part of, and they are very enthusiastic to be part of Ringland and to find out how can we reach new people in our neighborhoods to work together with us. So I think these different levels of scale are important. And as I said, we are a small city, everybody knows everyone. For example, the University of Antwerp is playing a very important role. They started, one of them was part of our Ringland Academy and started with the project of Curieuze Neuze, which was dealing with air quality in the inner city itself. Now it's a kind of international project at the university. Another part went about straatvinken, which is about the model shift on the level of the street and of the neighborhood. Okay, but that the people of the university are people living in one of the neighborhoods of Antwerp, and they have a lot of friends in their own neighborhood and their own. So yeah, I think that this is rather advantage to the way it works, and it can continue. And now, for example, we asked the university to deal with us on the point of the finance workbank, to look for how can we, the costs and benefits, how can we calculate them better, how can we find out new ways to finance. And okay, that's expertise we are looking for. And some expertise is coming for free. People call us and say, can we help you? And sometimes we have to pay someone to say, okay, make this study, but we have some money from people who pay us every month, €5. Fantastic.
Rien, do you have experiences to share, or? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no. I think I can share a couple of ideas. I think concerning petiteceinture.be and Bye Bye Petite Ceinture, we didn't really become a citizen movement. We didn't have that capacity in our collective, I think. We have seen appearing other collectives like Filter Café, and they are also active in Antwerp. They also have an Antwerp branch, and they put the air quality issue on the agenda, and then on the other hand, the Heroes for Zero movement, who have several organizations on the municipal level, and they really act on the traffic security, on the road security, and they managed to gather more people around them, people who are just like ordinary parents, ordinary inhabitants of the neighborhoods, and they managed to translate those maybe rather abstract ambitions to very, very concrete, on the spot issues. Everybody can recognize the difficulties with traffic security or road security in Brussels. So they managed to direct this discussion in a way that it appeals to, or that it addresses the citizen, just the ordinary citizen. On the other hand, we of course made contact with those associations. We act and we stay in contact together, and we are rather seen as Bye Bye Petite Ceinture as a collective that brings expertise in the debate. So rather from this professional point of view, the urban planners who then give expertise to the citizens who put up actions in the streets, rather from, and that is the kind of symbiosis we have with them. Secondly, and lastly, we had our focus on the Petite Ceinture, and that is a very difficult area, a very difficult territory to work on, because it is such a monofunctional space, completely oriented and designed for road traffic, that it has very little potential to really be appropriated by those citizens, because even though the Petite Ceinture is adjacent to 4 of the 5 densest neighborhoods in the Brussels region, I think not a lot of people feel that the Petite Ceinture is really part of their neighborhood or part of the city. It's a periphery for everybody, and that makes it very difficult to stir imagination on what this place could be as really a place that is integrated in the city, that fulfills a role for the city, for the climate challenges, as a green space, as a place where you can hang out, where you can do sports, where you can do where you can play and meet people. That's very difficult to give that imagination to people. You could say the same about the ring road in Antwerp, but by covering it and by creating a park on top of it, it becomes a lot more imaginable and a lot more clear for people what it could become in the future.
Yeah, if I can add something, what I would say is that everybody in Antwerp is involved in this kind of problem. People who are in the congestion charge, in the congestion, other people who know that their children are crossing the ring 4 times a day, going to the school, other people who don't find a sports club nearby, people who want to walk with their dog, people who can't close their windows at night because of the noise, who can't sit in their garden because of the noise. So everybody is involved in this kind of problem. And as Rien said, the dream of what could be possible on sports, on recreation, on parks, on space, wonderful. And yeah, that makes it work.
So there are 2 questions so far in the chat. One by Marco: I'm really impressed by the work and the durability of Ringland. Are the driving forces of Ringland all volunteers? I think a lot of it has been said also in the discussion, but maybe Peter, you want to add something to this? And then a question by Dries Verdoot: if a 50-50 modal shift can be obtained by 2030, resulting in a smaller infrastructure design, can we strive for a 40-60 or even a 30-70 modal shift, then say a tunnel extra small? So what are the possibilities to push this further?
What the model shift belongs, I totally agree that we shouldn't stop at 50-50, and I hope that we can continue to go to a better organization of our mobility. And although it's very, very important that the inner city of Antwerp today is 50-50, but it's not enough, of course not. And if you want to have 50-50 in the whole region, the 32 communities, then the inner city of Antwerp has to be 30-70. And the ring around should be 40-60 at least. So we hope that the goal is very clear. We are going to monitor this, but we hope that we can continue, and that also some politicians who are rather hard in their opinion to have more traffic and more parking lots in Antwerp, that we can change that during this transformation we are going to make. And I hope that the Corona crisis can help us on that point too. I hope that the green nerves that are be built in those neighborhoods up to the ring can change the circulation in the neighborhood too, and that we can work there on the climate change also on the level of the public space of the neighborhood. So there are a lot of elements, to be added on the capping on the ring itself. And then the other question of volunteers, yes, we have a lot. And if we do a festival tomorrow, I know there are 200 never did something. The first festival was wonderful. we were amazed that such an amount of people were there. And we had asked someone to do the bar. It was not enough, far enough. So I was passing the festival, and everybody I knew, I said to my friends, to my brother, you have to go to help there. You have to go to help there. Go there, go there. So 50 volunteers added in a half an hour. And if I ask them tomorrow, they are coming back, I'm sure. But the hardcore are the people who are following the whole ring parks, following all the discussions, the experts, a lot of them who spend a lot of free time on working on that. That's for sure.
Rien, you have some question?
Yeah, I was still thinking about the particular relationship you have with politics within Ringland since you concluded the Toekomstverbond. Being a citizen movement together with Straten-Generaal and Ademloos, you are in this very difficult position, I think, to continue being critical towards the public authorities who decide upon the plans, and at the same time collaborating with them and making compromises. So it would be interesting to know how you deal with that position.
We explain it to the politicians. For example, it's very clear. The environment of the Sportpaleis is the hardest one, very difficult one, and a lot of problems. For example, the junction with the E313 up to the east is not solved at the moment. Will it be covered or not? There's not money at this moment for this part of the covering at Schijnpoort and at Dam. So there is now a so-called Schijnverbond. So it's a community of people around the river Schijn who gathered and they said, okay, we are dealing for the noise problems in the Tuinwijk, for the people from the Teneco Valley, for the environment of the Sportpaleis. And so they're pushing us. And we can tell to the politicians, very sorry. We have to explain to them what we are doing here. So be reasonable. We can't say something different. We can't accept some points you try to make. No, we have to go further. And that's but it's true that it's rather a balance between how to act, not on the formal juridical way. Straten-Generaal and Ademloos stopped their juridical actions at Conseil d'État when they signed the Toekomstverbond, but the pressure is still the same. And on the other hand, because we are discussing a lot with these politicians, and sometimes we don't agree with some of them, but we know it from each other, and so we can discuss from that point of view. I said, I'm sorry, Koen, but we don't agree. You can't. You have to accept that we can't explain this to our people. And for him, it's the same. Okay, we battle. The battle goes on. The discussion goes on. But it's important that discussion can be done around the table. Not at the moment, but okay, face to face, and not by the newspaper.
Yes, so thank you. So far, I don't see any new questions. So unless Rien or Peter, you have something to add still, I think there's many things untouched so far. Well, there's still such a rich topic that there's many things still untouched, but
yeah, hope you have an idea. Thanks for the invitation. All success for Brussels. Go on with the Stadstol and the discussion with Flanders region because we know also that it's sure for us that steering of the mobility, reducing capacity, better steering, also by financial elements, okay, that's the future. And so all experience of that is good for us too. Thanks.
We're working on that. Okay, in that case, thank you very much to Peter and to Rien. Thank you to Margot and IRIB for organizing this. And thank you to all people in the audience for joining in and for the questions asked. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next Midi de IRIB.
See you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.